What's up, Broncos country? You probably won't believe what you're about to discover about the Denver Broncos right now. The franchise that's sitting at 11 wins and 2 losses, leading the AFC, is getting completely bizarre news that could change everything we thought about this 2025 season. And today I'm going to show you exactly why this situation is much more serious than it appears on the surface. I'm a die-hard Denver Broncos fan for as long as I can remember. And I've seen it all with this team, from the glory days with John Elway and Peyton Manning to the 7 dark years we're trying to forget. But what's happening now? This is different. And there's a detail involving the Broncos defense that could blow up in our faces in the coming weeks. Stick with me until the end because I'm going to reveal numbers that nobody's talking about, and that could define whether this season ends in glory or in another Broncos country disappointment. Look, let's get straight to the point because there's no time for beating around the bush. The Denver Broncos are sitting at 11-2 and clinching a playoff spot as soon as this weekend. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, there's a nightmare lurking around mile high that nobody wants to talk about openly. December could be our grave again. Yes, again. If you're a long-time fan like me, your stomach is already churning just hearing the word December alongside Broncos. And if you think I'm being dramatic, let me show you some numbers that'll freeze you solid. We need to talk about this because the data doesn't lie, my friend. The data never lies. Last season, between weeks 1 and 12, our defense was a wall. We're talking about allowing just 309 yards per game and a ridiculous average of 16.83 points allowed. Bo Nix didn't even need to break a sweat to win these games. He just had to put 17 points on the board, and it was done. We were unstoppable. The pressure on the opposing quarterback was through the roof. Vance Joseph looked like a defensive genius, and everyone in Denver was already buying Super Bowl tickets in their heads. Then December 2024 hit, and man, it was like someone unplugged our defense. Suddenly, we were allowing 370 yards per game and almost 28 points allowed per game. That's a 20% regression, folks. 20%! It's like the Broncos defense turns into a pumpkin when the calendar flips to the last month of the year. And don't give me that excuse that the last game against the Chiefs doesn't count because they didn't play with their starters. By that point, we'd already become a joke. Remember what happened in the playoffs? Buffalo Bills came to Denver and did what to us? Scored 31 points and eliminated us like they were playing against a college team. It was humiliating. And now, December 2025, we're seeing worrying signs that history could repeat itself. Sports Illustrated published an article this week pointing out some emerging weaknesses in the Denver Broncos defense. And look, I wish I could ignore this and say it's just media noise, but the numbers are right there, man. Against the Las Vegas Raiders, a team in complete free fall, we allowed 17 points. Sounds like not much? The Raiders' average points per game is 12. In other words, they scored more against us than they usually score. And it doesn't stop there. The Washington Commanders, who the following week got massacred by the Vikings without scoring a single point, managed to put up 26 points on our defense. 26. And on top of that, we had to win in overtime because they almost turned the game around with a 2-point conversion. If that goes in, my friend, we'd be sitting at 10-3 right now, and everyone would be panicking. And there's one more bizarre thing happening that's making Denver Broncos news analysts pull their hair out. We're rotating Chris Abrams-Draine. That's right. We're taking Riley Moss off the field in some series to give the guy a rest and put in Abrams-Draine. Why? Theoretically, to keep everyone fresh. But when you start messing with a defense that was working, things can fall apart fast. Our quarterback pressure, which was our trademark, is dropping. Early in the season, it looked like we were going to break the Chicago Bears' historic sack record. Now, we need to average more than 4 sacks per game just to tie the record. 4 sacks per game. This is no joke. And against the Green Bay Packers this Sunday, we're going to need a lot more than what we've had in recent weeks. According to insiders in the organization, there's real concern behind the scenes. It's not panic yet, but that silent tension that every veteran fan recognizes. It's like when you feel something's wrong, but nobody wants to say it out loud to avoid jinxing it. And look, I totally understand that feeling because I've seen this movie before. Now take a deep breath with me because I didn't come here just to send you into a panic. If I were a betting man, I'd still put my chips on the Denver Broncos 2025 season. Why? Because this team has some crucial differences compared to last year that could be the difference between an embarrassing elimination and a historic Super Bowl run. First difference, Talanoa Hufanga. My God, what a player. This guy is a huge improvement at the safety position compared to what we had last year. Hufanga isn't just a guy who hits hard. He reads plays like he's got the opponent's playbook in his hand. His intelligence on the field elevates the entire secondary, and when you have a safety who communicates well, who adjusts coverages mid-play, who doesn't miss silly tackles, your defense transforms. It's like having an extra defensive coordinator on the field. Second difference, Patrick Surtain II is completely healthy. And man, a healthy Pat Surtain is simply unfair to the opposing offense. Last year he had some physical issues that limited his explosiveness at certain moments. This year, the guy is playing at an all-pro level, possibly Defensive Player of the Year again. When you have the best cornerback in the NFL on your side, everything gets easier. Third difference, Jahdae Barron. This rookie we picked up in the draft is being an absolute revelation covering tight ends. And you know that in the modern NFL, if you can't stop an elite tight end, you're not going far. Last year we struggled terribly against passes to the middle of the field. This year, with Barron in the scheme, that's improved significantly. The kid has instinct and technique, a rare combination in a rookie. And here's a statistic that should calm some anxious hearts a bit. Our quarterback pressure is still strong enough. Yes, it's dropped a little, but we're talking about making 4.8 sacks per game to take the NFL's historic lead. That means we're still producing a lot more pressure than most defenses can dream of. Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, Zach Allen, John Franklin Myers. This pass rusher crew is still terrifying. Now let's talk about the other side of the ball, because our offense has also evolved big time. Bo Nix is no longer that rookie quarterback trying to figure out the NFL. The kid has grown, matured, and is playing smart football. In the last 3 weeks, Nix completed 70% of his passes. 70%. At the start of the season, he was at 60.9%. This is real development, people. This is a quarterback who's learning to read defenses, make the right adjustments, not force stupid passes that turn into interceptions, and more. R.J. Harvey is being a phenomenal discovery in the backfield. The rookie had a 100-yard game against the Raiders and showed he has a lot more physicality and field vision than many people imagined. I'm not saying he's the next Terrell Davis, but he brings an energy and an ability to gain tough yards that this offense was desperately needing. Troy Franklin in his second year is also making a difference. The kid has created chemistry with Bo Nix, understands route concepts, and isn't afraid to play through the middle of the field where the hits are hardest. And Pat Bryant? This undrafted free agent is proving that Sean Payton has an absurd eye for identifying talent. Bryant is making clutch plays in decisive moments. So look, yes, there are reasons for concern, but there are also many reasons for optimism. This team has more offensive weapons, more defensive depth, and more experience than it had last year. And another thing, Bo Nix is 8-0 against NFC teams in his career. 8-0. This isn't a coincidence. Sean Payton knows the NFC like the back of his hand after all those years with the New Orleans Saints. He knows exactly how to attack NFC defenses, what the tendencies are, where the weaknesses are. And look, there's something I haven't told you yet about the game against the Green Bay Packers that could completely change how you see this matchup. But before we get there, I need you to do something for me. Subscribe to the channel and drop that like down below. Seriously, this helps the algorithm tons to get this content to more Broncos country fans who need to know this information. And tell me in the comments, Are you confident or worried about the Denver Broncos playoffs chances this December? I want to know your honest opinion. Now let's talk about this absurdity, this lack of respect that the Denver Broncos are suffering. We have the longest home winning streak in the entire NFL. Read that right? The entire NFL. We're on a 10-game winning streak overall, 11-2 for the year. We're the first seed in the AFC right now, and guess what? We're entering as underdogs against the Green Bay Packers at home, at Mile High Stadium. This is crazy. The Las Vegas odds makers have the Broncos as 2.5-point underdogs. In other words, if we lose by 2 points, we'll still be within expectations. This is an insult, man, a complete insult. And you know what this tells me? That nobody outside of Denver is taking this team seriously. Everyone thinks we're an accident waiting to happen, that our winning streak is luck, that Bo Nix is just a game manager who'll be exposed in the playoffs. Well, let me tell you a story. In Super Bowl XLIII, back in 1998, the Denver Broncos were also underdogs. Everyone thought the Green Bay Packers were going to massacre us. Brett Favre was in his prime, Reggie White was considered unbeatable, and John Elway was seen as too old to compete at that level. And what happened? Terrell Davis ran for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns. Elway did that legendary helicopter spin, and we won 31-24. It was the first Super Bowl in franchise history. Since that day, folks, the Broncos have a 7-1 record against the Green Bay Packers. 7-1. The only loss was in 2007 by a tight margin of 19-13. And I remember perfectly 2 seasons ago when the Broncos had nothing left to lose, were already eliminated from the playoffs, and still went out there and beat the Packers with Russell Wilson and P.J. Locke commanding the offense. A team that should have given up on the season went out and beat a Super Bowl contender. That tells you something about this organization's culture. That tells you something about what it means to wear the orange and blue of Denver. It doesn't matter what the odds say. It doesn't matter what the ESPN analysts think. It doesn't matter if the whole country is betting against you. When you play at Mile High, at Denver's altitude, with Broncos country screaming every snap, you have an advantage that doesn't show up in the stats. And let's talk about specific matchups, because this is important. The Packers' biggest strength was tight end Tucker Kraft, who's a serious problem for any defense. But guess what? The guy is out for the season with an injury. That eliminates one of their main offensive weapons. Is Jordan Love still dangerous? Of course he is. The kid has a strong arm and can make all the throws. But our defensive line is going to have opportunities to pressure him all game long. We've already faced ground attacks much more physical and aggressive than what Green Bay will bring. Ashton Jeanty of the Raiders tried to run us over, and we held. Christian Watson is fast and athletic, but Riley Moss has already covered much more talented and dangerous receivers. And another thing, our home field advantage at altitude affects teams coming from sea level. The Packers are going to feel it in the fourth quarter when legs start to get heavy. Bo Nix, as I already mentioned, simply dominates NFC teams. 8 wins, 0 losses against NFC opponents in his career. And a lot of that is due to the familiarity Sean Payton has with these schemes. Payton coached in the NFC his whole life before coming to Denver. He knows the defensive tendencies, the favorite blitzes, the most used coverages. When he studies Green Bay's film, he's not seeing anything new. He's seeing patterns he's faced hundreds of times. Against NFC teams, Bo Nix has a passer rating of 94, with 20 touchdowns and over 2,000 yards in just 9 games. These are elite numbers, my friend. And in the last 4 weeks, Nix has been playing like a top 10 quarterback in the league. PFF, which is super critical and sometimes even unfair to young quarterbacks, put him back in the top 15 of the overall rankings. That's after falling to 34th place in certain weeks of the season. Bo Nix's development is real and measurable. He's making better decisions, holding the ball for less time, distributing passes to 11 different receivers in a single game. 11. That shows confidence, system knowledge, and ability to read the entire route progression. He's no longer that guy who got stuck on the first read and then had to improvise. Now he's seeing the whole field. And this team's chemistry, man, it's palpable. You see it in the way they celebrate, in the way they trust each other, in the way they talk to the media. This locker room is united. After 7 years of losing, drama with Russell Wilson, coaching changes every 2 seasons, we finally have stability. We finally have an identity. We finally have players who believe they can win any game. So when they ask me if I'm worried about the Denver Broncos defense regressing in December, or if I think we'll lose to Green Bay, I answer like this. Obviously, I'm a little apprehensive. It would be stupid to ignore historical patterns. But I believe in this team more than I've believed in any Broncos team in the last 8 years. Since 2017, I haven't felt this genuine confidence. This team has something special, folks. I feel it in my fan soul. And when the Broncos beat the Packers this Sunday, and I said, when, not if, everyone's going to have to stop and recognize Denver is for real. We're not pretenders. We're not a surprise. We're contenders for the AFC title. But there's a crucial detail about the final stretch of the season that could define whether we make it to the Super Bowl or fall short. We face the Packers, then Jacksonville Jaguars at home, then we go to Arrowhead to face the Chiefs on Christmas night, and we close against the Chargers, who are also fighting for the playoffs. These are 4 absurdly difficult games, and the way our defense performs during this period will determine everything. So tell me in the comments, do you trust Vance Joseph's defense not to repeat last December's collapse? Do you think Bo Nix and Sean Payton have what it takes to win tough games down the stretch? And more importantly, do you see this Denver Broncos team making it to Super Bowl LX? Subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, turn on notification bells so you don't miss any analysis, and share this video with that friend who's also Broncos country. Let's show the rest of the NFL that Denver is back, that Mile High is a fortress again, that orange and blue means fear for opponents again. And remember, they can make us underdogs. They can doubt us. They can say our defense will collapse. But at the end of the day, on Sunday afternoon, when that ball is kicked off and the game starts, none of that matters. What matters is execution, it's culture, it's the will to win. And this Denver Broncos team has that in spades. See you in the next video, Broncos country, and get your voice ready, because Sunday there's going to be a lot of screaming here at Mile High. Go Broncos!